Hello people, last video I mentioned that I was going to show more battles between two of the greatest players in the scene right now, and that's what you're looking at now. It's Crabling versus Void. They played a tournament, and the final of the tournament they actually ended up playing on the new patch, which is going to be very interesting. It's the first actual competitive gameplay I see on this patch, very early on as well. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the players tackle it. There's immediately a very uncommon matchup. Well, it used to be a very uncommon matchup, but it might become more common these days, which is the Beastman against the Vampire Counts. Traditionally, the Beastman pretty much just can't deal with the Vampire Counts. Every Blue Monday you might see them win it. Crabling is definitely a player who sometimes managed to win it on the previous patch, but yeah, normally speaking they shouldn't really win it. But now with their new toys, who knows, they might even have the advantage. We'll see. So Crabling, sort of unsurprisingly, is bringing both of the Regiment of Renown monsters, which are just in the general meta it's common to bring giant monsters against Vampire Counts who don't have ranged units. He has the Brace Shaman of the Wild, who has Traitorkin, and the new Devolve, which is a debuff, also the Brace Scream for dealing damage to Ethereals. This Forbic Land Brute Mother, it also deals magic damage, so maybe the time for Ethereals in this game is pretty much over, because it seems everyone has very good ways of dealing with them right now. Here you see the upgraded Traitorkin coming in. Look at the damage it's doing. The Black Knights are losing a lot of models right now. Actually 13 in total. And the Chillgeists have lost 8 models as well. So that's yeah, quite a lot. And the Necromancer will be trying to heal those guys up a little bit. But the models actually died, so only the Chillgeists are getting a little bit of healing from the Master of the Dead aura. And what Void is doing is he's trying to snipe the caster, which is, I think, the proper way to go. That Traitorkin is just brutal, and I think you cannot really engage into it, especially not against this very compact army that's going to beat your units by having multiple of their units fight a couple of your units at a time. And if you try to send in more units to help out, they get Traitorkin on them and they all die. So it is definitely the correct play here, I think, to go for that Brace Shaman. Although right here he tried to use a Breath on Taurox and missed. That can definitely happen with Breaths. Right now, diving for the Brace Shaman was sort of overextended, I think. But maybe it was just a bait, because a Jabberslide jumps onto the Strigoi, sort of pushes him away, gets, you know, some damage on him, which might become relevant later, but for now the Strigoi is going to get away and regenerate. Devolve used very well there by Crabling. And while that was happening, Void still managed to get a Spirit Leech out onto the Brace Shaman, who is getting very low. Now the regular troops are engaging, but really, even though it's a lot of models, the infantry in this battle is not super relevant. They will definitely help if they manage to saturate an engagement between the single entities, but really it's going to come down to the single entities. The Varghulfs against the ROR monsters and Taurox, and of course the Strigoi Ghoul King on the side of the Varghulfs as well. And yeah, Beastmen are not really winning this engagement. I would have liked to see them be a bit more aggressive, because the way they win, I think, is by taking down all of the infantry as quickly as possible and then winning from there, because now as the main engagement gets underway, their caster is already dead, which is of course down to Void using very well good Spirit Leeches. RNG on those Spirit Leeches was definitely not too bad either. Right here, Taurox the Brass Bull and the Bloodbrood Behemoth. They've kind of gotten a sandwich on the Strigoi Ghoul King. He manages to get away with his Opal Amulet, which this patch gives 20% damage resistance, which is a little bit less than last patch, but not a significant amount less. But yeah, they got the surround there. Now they're surrounded by infantry, but you can see they don't have too much trouble getting out of it. The Jabberslide comes in, starts using that mortis effect on all of those zombies and skeletons, and you can see how quickly they go down. The Scab Scrat seems to have sort of missed. Scab Scrat takes a bit longer to charge up, so we're definitely going to see a lot more missed Scab Scrats. And yeah, this is sort of the world turned on its head, where the Beastmen are using a Mortis engine, and the Vampire Counts are not. Void is trying to get that Jabberslide under control with his Dire Pack, but the Dire Pack takes a lot of damage. The Jabberslide is not easily controlled. It is a monster that doesn't fly, technically, but can sort of drag itself around the battlefield with its animations. More or less fly around, sort of like Sartorial does, but more effectively, I would say. Very hard to pin down. Yeah, that Mortis damage he's doing to these units is definitely quite relevant. It's getting the Beastmen a significant advantage in the infantry department. Meanwhile though, the Strigoi is now going for the snipe on Taurox. Of course, if you can remove the Beastman leadership, the Frenzy and Primal Rage will go down. And without that, they become vulnerable to fear and terror. So that is a good idea. Of course, Taurox is not squishy or anything, not easily killed. But he is down to pretty low health already. And the Bloodbrute Behemoth, he kind of gets isolated by the Varghulfs, by the Strigoi Ghoul King. One Varghulf takes a beating. And yeah, as I said, it's mostly about the single enemies. There's no clear battle lines, no real flanking attempts, or, you know, ranged units coming into play, or terrain coming into play. It's all down to the single entity micro. And of course the RNG on their hits. That's what it looks like right now. And of course this is the first time we see players playing competitively in this matchup, so it's not that this is the way the matchup is always going to be or go, but it's definitely sort of a starting point. Varghulf is pretty low. Big breath there on Taurox. The easiest way to get those hits in, guys, is usually when they're in combat. Varghulfs are knocked away from each other there. And yeah, Taurox is now routing. A lot of the Beastmen infantry, or units in general, are Chaos Spawn. They're unbreakable, so even if you kill Taurox, they will stay in the fight. Bloodbrute Behemoth is pretty low. Could still regenerate if he manages to stay in combat long enough, but I don't think that's going to happen. And yeah, he actually gets killed there. Fluffy or Mittens, I always forget who is who. Manages to strike him down. So, Beastmen have definitely got an advantage in the numbers department, sort of outnumbering the Vampire Counts 2-1 right now. And White King is stuck in these Chaos Spawn and Spears. Strigoi Ghoul King is trying to get away. Root Mother still looking strong, getting those hits in, leaping after the Strigoi Ghoul King. Will it manage to get another hit? Oh, I think the Strigoi is out of there. Taurox goes down. One of the Varghulfs is really low. Should probably come over to the Necromancer and get some healing from that Master of the Dead aura to stabilize. Yeah, right now, there's still a lot of regen that the Vampire Counts can be using. And of course, they may want to engage before their White King gets killed. Well, when they're out of infantry, they will have to engage, as I assume this was played under banner rules. Or just any competitive rule set will, of course, I don't want to say force, but it will, of course, not allow just running around with units regenning without other units attacking at the same time. So yeah. Void is choosing to fight before he runs out of infantry. Of course, the infantry support quite valuable in these sorts of fights. He is still using regen, just might not be able to use all of it. Guys might die before they hit their heal cap. But he's putting a lot of damage on the Brute Modder, and these Brute Modder, Jabberslides in general, they're not the best monster fighters, guys. They're really meant to kill infantry. Probably they can do a lot of damage to Footlords. They're probably not completely hopeless in monster fights either. Their stats are pretty good. At least this Regiment of Renown stats are pretty good. But yeah, it's just not specialized in fighting monsters. It can't do everything. That's the focus job. And I like that they gave both monsters a very different role here as well. Brute Modder is now routing. Even a Jabberslide can get scared, apparently. It's trying to get out of there. I would be trying to get out of there as well if I was getting slapped by 2 Vargulfs. Well, only 1 Vargulf right now. So, Brute Modder realizes that and turns around. Starts fighting the Strigoi, and you can see it gets decent damage on the Strigoi. I do think the Strigoi will come out on top in that fight. With Terrorgeist, of course, being the more classic anti-large creature. Another routes again and gets killed, so that's the end of the single entities for the Beastmen. And man, this is a pretty close battle, but even with that loss, they are actually pulling out ahead on the balance of power. These Chaos Spawn, just an absolute unit, quite literally, in this battle. Yeah, maybe Void a little bit too hasty with that. Could have maybe bought some time to get more of his regen done. But he spent a lot of Pins of Magic on Spirit Leeches, so probably didn't have enough to cast a lot of base dead to really buy time. And didn't want to let his White King die, which is fair enough. He did get a lot of damage in the end, but yeah, to win that, I think he really needed to get his units to his heal cap, and there just wasn't enough time to do that. So yeah, let's quickly look at the damage values. Both of the ROR monsters getting their value. Chaos Spawn, of course, doing really well. Even the Spears doing pretty well. Bray Shaman died early, but man, those Traderkins, they're something to look out for. They look, I don't want to say busted, but yeah, they might be busted. And Strigoi killing almost half of the army. Of course, most of it was single entities, and he's a single entity killer. So that's where he got his value. The infantry didn't do too well. You don't really expect him to do too well, but the Jabberslide just killed him so quickly. Cavalry didn't get to do much, Dogs didn't get to do much. Vargulfs did a decent job, but yeah, really had to reach their heal cap there and just didn't really get the opportunity. Should have maybe stuck closer to the Necromancer. So yeah, Crabling going up 1-0 in this series. I'll see you in the next video where we will see the second battle of this best of 5. Thanks for watching.